Well, I've been reluctant to share this spiritual experience. I think because I was born back in the 50s, you know, I mean, I grew up in the 50s, and there wasn't any internet then, so if you had a spiritual experience, there really wasn't any way of knowing that, you know, other people were having such experiences, and it wasn't just you. So you tended to keep quiet about things like that. Anyways, this experience happened in 1977, and it's 2018 now, so I guess I've been holding on to this for a while. At the time, I was doing volunteer work in Kenya, East Africa, and this particular day, I had taken our youth group out. I was always taking them out on adventurous things. I mean, I even had them climb Mount Kenya, which is over 17,000 feet. But this day, we went to the Athi River, and it was not during the rainy season, so the the river was low and relatively clear. And you have to understand, I had like 18 young people with me. None of them could swim. I mean, at least back in 1977 in Kenya, unless you lived, you know, next to the ocean or next to a lake, you just didn't learn to swim. You know, people didn't, you know, have time to learn things that they didn't need. But so it was a beautiful area. There were huge boulders, and we hiked in maybe half a mile from the road, and there were boulders like 3 stories high, and there were 2 big ones that were leaning against each other, so that our whole group, it was like 18 young people, could you know, have lunch in the shade under the boulders. And there was a really broad beach, you know, mostly, you know, boulders, but, you know, towards the river, there was a broad area of sand. So anyway, everybody was out wading in the water, and like I said, nobody could swim. I was the only one who could swim. And so they were, you know, like sitting down in the water, maybe up to here. And well, I'm a very strong swimmer, so the flow of rivers in Africa the volume is so much more than in America. And I swam out into the middle of the current, and it was so interesting because as soon as I hit the midline of the current, I just got sucked down, and it was like a down plunge, you know, and the water took me down about 12 feet, and then it just started circulating, like being in a washing machine. And I wasn't worried because, you know, I scuba dive. I've you know, spent a lot of time in rivers. I've been in riptides. I've been in undertows. I knew I could get out, and I did. Just, you know, swimming perpendicular to this circular motion. So I did that probably at least 12 times, because it was really, you know, the water was so powerful, and it was just, you know, kind of like when you're in maybe a 7-foot wave and it breaks, except that this just kept going. It just kept churning you around and around. So after that, well, I was, you know, a little tired, and I swam back to the shallows, And there was one young woman there. I mean, she was like 17, named Paris, Peris. And I always liked to tease her in our youth group because she, you know, she would just like, she had this really high-pitched laugh, and she would squeal delightfully. So I went up to her. You know, I was like kind of up to here in the water. She was just sitting there in the shallows. And I reached out and took her arm, and I said, Paris, I'm going to pull you out into the current. And of course she started screaming, and of course she knew it was a joke. Yeah. And so I do not know how, but somehow the current grabbed me, and because I was holding Paris, it pulled us both into the current. And well, you know, Paris was a big girl, and like 230 pounds, and she could not swim. So as soon as we went out into the deep water, she just like grabbed me with both her arms and legs. And when we hit the midline of the current, that down plunge took us underwater. And we were just going around and around like in a washing machine. So I think after about a minute and a half, Paris, you know, passed out. And so now, you know, she you know, she released me. So I was just holding on to her hand. And, you know, I tried to swim out perpendicular to this, you know, circular wash, just like I'd done 12 times before. And with her added weight, I couldn't do it. Yeah. So I you know, tried as hard as I could because, like, you know, our lives depended on it. And we'd already been underwater almost 2 minutes. So I think I tried 4 times, and then I realized I realized 2 things. I realized I can get out of here if I let go of Paris. I can't get out of here if I hold on to Paris. And I'm not going to let go of Paris. And I mean, I just couldn't do it. And I made that decision. And so, I mean, I was decided. I wasn't coming out alone. So then I said, God, I didn't come to this country to drown one of your children in a river. But if you still have something that you want me to do on this earth, then you have to help me, because I cannot get out of here on my own strength, and I'm not letting go of this girl. So then, all of a sudden, it was like a giant hand. I could feel it, you know, on the backs of my thighs, on my butt, on my back. It was like a giant hand. It just thrust both of us up out of the water. And I mean, it was, you know, easily 12 feet. And over to the shallows. And of course, as soon as my feet hit the bottom, yeah, I was, you know, churning forward, but there was so much force pushing me that I thought I was going to fall over forward. And interestingly enough, the only person who had noticed that we were gone was another, it was a European volunteer, a girl. And she was, you know, I saw her as I came up out of the water, and she had, well, she had the kind of expression you'd expect from a person who saw two two people go into water and hadn't seen them for like 2.5 minutes. But as soon as she saw me, just relief flooded her face. And I was pushed so far up, that sand beach that Paris's body actually made a furrow where I dragged her. So I was just standing there shocked. I still had Paris by the hand. I was looking at this girl, and then I heard coughing behind me, and I stepped around, and Paris was coughing up water. So I kind of rolled her on her side, and she coughed up a lot of water and started breathing. And that was it. She was fine. We didn't have to do CPR or anything. So, at least based on my understanding of physics, God saved me from drowning in that river. I just don't understand any other explanation. I scuba dive. I've been in, where there are parallel walls and like a 7-foot surge. I fly fish. I've, had my waders inflate. You're going down the river with a couple hundred extra pounds of water, and I just steer myself to the shore. I know how the water acts, and water can't do that. I mean, it can do it in Disney movies, but it can't do it in real life. So I wanted to share this experience because, I don't think many people have an experience like that, and it's like really helped me in times of difficulty to remember that because I called on him, it's like God suspended the rules of physics, or I don't know, maybe there are some higher rules, and pushed me and Paris up out of that river. So I hope this has been of value. Thank you for listening.